direction which direction we're going to go for our webinar. And if you have noticed, we have started the recording of the webinar. So just to take note, we'll be recording this entire session. And don't worry, your faces will be shown. Only our faces will be shown today. So throughout this interactive session, we are going to ask you some questions. We're going to have polls along the way where you can actually have a say about what direction we're going to go for our webinar. So for example, do we want to have this person up first or let her wait in the background, or we're gonna do a certain question and that's how our webinar is gonna flow. It's a very fun way of doing this webinar, and we tried it in the last session and it was an overwhelming response, positive response about this. That's why we're gonna continue for today's webinar as well. And throughout the session, not just we're gonna have polls. If you notice on Zoom, at your bottom bar, you're gonna see a Q&A, this button. You can click on it where you can actually write any questions you want to put there. Perhaps you have questions for our Enneagram coach, perhaps you have questions for our guest speaker, or perhaps you just have some random questions for me. I don't mind, just put in our Q&A segment over here, and we will have at the end, we will have this Q&A segment. We will answer your questions as much as we can. So maybe we can do a little test over here. If you can, over in the bottom bar, you can click on the chat button. You may need to click on more, and then you have the chat button. And then when you type in anything you want to type, remember to click on all panelists and attendees. That's how I can see all your comments over here. So I have people saying here, chemistry saying hi over here. Yes, we're going to click on all panelists and attendees. Then we can see a message. Hi, James. Thank you for saying good afternoon. Who else? Maybe you can come and say hi to me. I'm Tammy. I would love to have you speaking with us the entire afternoon and hear your feedback. And yes, we're going to ask questions that are open-ended as well. So you can actually answer on the chat if you have any responses you'd like to share. Maybe I'll start off with asking a question to everybody. How do you feel about our new heightened alert where dining in 5 has now becoming 2? Yeah, this was the hottest question yesterday. Yesterday, I think about 5 or so, we have these announcements like, I was waiting, this 5, I finally can wait for the 5. And then before I can go out with any 5 people, it's now back to 2 again. And I'm not fully vaccinated. I only had 1 dose. So like, I can't be in the 5. Don't go buy mangoes. Sati is saying good afternoon. And then we have Jane saying her lunch plans postponed. I know, right? So we already have some over here. Okay, what advice would you give to Enneagram Type 9? Oh, okay, interesting. So keep your questions coming. We're going to answer all that at the end where we have the Q&A segment. So enough of me talking. Okay, let's go on to the first poll. I'm going to ask all of you to participate with me. So I'll need the help of my admin to actually show us a picture, and then based on the picture, I'm going to ask everybody a question. So time to flash the picture on screen to share screen. So while we are sharing screen, you will notice it's a full screen mode. You can actually click on, for better viewing experience, you can click on view options, and then you put side by side. Okay, you can click on side-by-side mode where you actually see not just the picture, you can actually see the speaker speaking as well at the same time. So this is the picture that I want to show everybody over here. This picture, the question now is, what do you see in this picture? Now, do I see a man in blue shirt and the lady in magenta shirt, or do I see the lady in blue shirt and the man is in the magenta shirt? So who's the one hugging who? My question over here is, are you showing the man? Is it the man in blue or is it the lady in blue? Okay, well, everybody's looking at this picture. Take a closer look. Maybe it's A, maybe it's B. Which one it is? Just click on the thing and then we're gonna see who answers it correctly. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Hui Fong. Thanks for having us. Thanks for joining us over here and having to respond on the chat. So while your answers are coming, don't forget we have the Q&A segment. So you can click on it. If you have any questions, just ask along over there. And at the end, we are going to do the Q&A. It can be for the Enneagram coach. It can be for me. It can be for our guest. Okay, let's see the answer. Poll results. How is everybody showing? are we choosing? Okay, we have actually majority, 61% of us, clicking on the man is wearing the blue shirt and the lady in magenta. Shall we see what's the correct answer? Let's see. Let's show us what is the correct answer for this picture. Hey, you see what's happening? The man is the one actually sitting on the chair, and the lady is the one that is hugging him from behind. Fun picture, right? You know what this shows us? This actually shows us that we have different perspectives, right? We may be able to see one side at the first glance, but we may also eventually see the other side. It's just the same with people. It takes us time to know more about people, but Enneagram certainly helps us to know more about ourselves and others and more. So pictures can be deceiving until you take a closer look. People can be deceiving until you take a closer look. So what is Enneagram that we're going to talk about today? So Enneagram is a system of personality typing. It describes the patterns of how people interpret the world and manage their emotions. So you can see some people respond drastically different from another type of person. So we're going to have more examples later when we have our Enneagram coach. So we have 9 different types of personality types, and it maps each type to a 9-pointed diagram, which I'm going to show you later. And it helps to illustrate how each type relates to another. So to go to more in depth, we're going to have our expert. And before I introduce my expert, I would like Edmi to show us some of his credentials. So the one we're going to invite today is Wee Sing in the house. Mr. Ng Wee Sing, he is an accredited neuro-linguistic Enneagram coach. He has conducted numerous workshops, and his passion to build the lifelong relationships has helped him establish a clientele with high level of trust in him. And he is also one person I will totally trust for many things. Perhaps even lame jokes. I see whether later we see will say some lame jokes. I think his level is actually quite near to mine sometimes, although William might be a little bit higher. Okay, let's put our hands together and welcome Mr. Ng Wee Sing on screen with me. I
Hello,
hope all of you
Tammy.
can clap. Maybe you
Hello.
can type in the chat clap. And
Hello,
welcome, Wee
everyone.
Sing.
It's
Hi,
great
Wee
to be here
Sing.
today in the
Thank
beautiful
you.
afternoon. Yes, it's pretty hot. I can see outside there. Thanks to our friends who are here. I always enjoy how Tammy actually helped us to host any of this online event because it's always full of energy, vibrancy, and things like that. The show reel. Unfortunately, I never got to see her cry in front of me before. That's not
Oh, don't you make me cry, Wee Sing.
well, James said 超大了. So yeah, we are enjoying ourselves now. I'm in my at home inside with a beautiful aircon, enjoying myself. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Wee Sing. Over here, we have some questions, but we're going to leave the questions later
Yep.
for the Q&A segment. Sam, thank you for your question. So over here, perhaps you can help us put it in the Q&A segment so we can consolidate all the questions that we can see side by side. So before we start, I have a question for Wee Sing. Okay, because we're doing this R Factor, like I mentioned, it's the 9th episode, but I want you to share with us, perhaps if you can, why are we doing this session of R Factor?
Thanks, Tammy. The team, can we have the slides so that it's easier for me to share? I just saw a comment from one of my friends. Hui Fang told me that I'm hugging his aircon. I bet it's really hot outside. Yeah, I hope everyone is at the comfort of a home somewhere, enjoying themselves. So why are we having this webinar? In fact, this is not something new. We have been doing this since last year, September. It really started from idea of client servicing. Next, can we have? So it's important because we wanted to continue to connect with our friends, especially in the midst of COVID, especially when lockdown. The idea came upon because to us in Unicorn, there's a saying, right? There's clients, there's only friends. There is no colleagues, only family members. Like it or not, I was sharing my learning lessons or a reflection in 2020. At the end of 2020, I mentioned about, the opposite of blessing is not curses. The opposite of blessing is actually numbness. And probably we get too complacent and get too used to the ease of meeting our good friends. And actually, God orchestrated this whole thing to let us cherish friendship. So really, it is about client servicing. We hope through a platform like this, where we can share some valuable content, I will not regard myself as expert or guru in Enneagram. I'm still learning. I'm still going deeper to understand myself. But I think it's very helpful. I got myself certified as a NLE coach, but it's really an exploration. And today we really hope to able to value add to our friends, our dear friends over here. We got a good turnout. So yes, that's the first thing, client servicing. Next, in fact, we think that it's important. Financial planning starts with career planning. I guess with this pandemic, we observe that retrenchment rates are going higher. Companies are starting to do restructuring. Without a career, how can we be doing financial planning right? So, in fact, we see that on opposite. Whenever there's adversity, there's opportunity to upgrade ourselves, opportunity for us to explore different careers. That's why never let your work against you. Rather, and learn more about yourself and learn about your work so they can work for you. So that's the second reason, financial planning starts with career planning. The third reason is because we are hiring. We are definitely looking for good people that share the same value as us. Interestingly, some interesting and significant facts that I share with friends is 95% of our consultants in Unicorn are actually clients of Unicorn. Correct? Tammy, I know that you joined this family member, you were also a client. I was also a client much before. So we are calling for friends who are probably in the midst of their career junction, or even have friends who are looking around. Well, feel free if you get to know about us. Of course, not in this context, you can actually call us, let us know, we can have a good talk because I think we want to reach out to more friends. We wanted to advocate or rather promulgate authentic financial planning. So yeah, this is the three main reason why we are having this monthly session called the R Factor.
Thank you, Wei Sing, for sharing this. Actually, I do agree the part where you say like through this session, these are the things that we can actually do. And obviously, I want to highlight again because Wei Sing mentioned like we are hiring, but later at the end, I'm gonna elaborate more. But before we go to that, I have one more question for you, Wei Sing, before you start talking about Enneagram. It's about how did you actually get to know Enneagram and what attracted it to you? Actually, you to it, sorry.
Okay. I got to know about Enneagram that was only about close to 2 years, 1.5 years ago. In fact, like I mentioned, I'm still learning, still going deeper. I was introduced by one of my close friends. In fact, for those friends who have followed us last episode, right, is the ironical thing is that last session I was still being interviewed by my Enneagram coach. Today is a payback time, right? I always wanted to learn more about myself, how I can lead my team well because I'm running a financial advisory practice. I lead a team to protect, to groom and to train them. I felt kind of stagnant at times even frustrated because I do not know, why some of my teammates, behave in a certain way. I tried different means to motivate them. At times it works, at times it fails. So there was this opportunity for me to equip myself, so to learn about Enneagram. So I decided to, check it out. But to tell you the truth, Tammy, before this, I was never a fan of a profiler. I was never a fan of a profiler tool or personality test, okay? Because I always felt that this kind of frame people in terms of their behavior, and you start to categorize you based on who you are, or you are introvert, you are extrovert, you are eagle, you are a duckling or chicken. But Enneagram changed my perspective towards this. As I go deeper, in fact, I invested a couple of $1,000s on the course. I realized it's a very systematic way to help me understand the underlying motivation and the desire of one behavior. It is really about understanding the internal motivation, why you think, why you feel, and why you act the way you do. So it shows us, who are we at our best and who are we at our worst. So in Enneagram, there's always different health level or advisory or mastery level. At times, you may be sticking to a type 1, but in fact, you realize that it can behave very differently when it's healthy or when it's stressed out and unhealthy. And I think it helps me to widen my world. Just like earlier, Tammy, you went through with us the simple exercise of illusion, right? Whether do you see the man or you see the woman My friends told me that be careful of what you go through your mind. What you see is what your mind is thinking, right? So different people would have their different ways of seeing different perspective. So both of them could be right in their own ways. So I must say that I benefited a lot. Thus, I'm more than happy to be sharing with our friends today. I'm not trying to be humble here today, but I really believe it's explorations. I'm not as if I am the mastery. I know everything about Enneagram. I'm still learning, but really enjoyable. So that's how I get to know Enneagram, and I explore this journey with Enneagram.
Thank you, Wei. And I love your attitude. It's like, oh, I'm still learning, and then it's gonna be fun. And I love it. That's just typical you, right? By the way, he's a type three.
No, I
If you
type 3 shouldn't be saying that, right? If,
that should be
if
type seven, right? That's me, right? Anyway, but why are okay? Now the audience must be confused. Right? We're talking about type one, type two, type three, you know.
yeah,
So now it's time for us to learn what are the nine types,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Let's
Okay.
dive into it. So, shall we have the slides up so that they can have an overall picture of what Enneagram is about? Maybe we have a poll quickly. For those who have heard of Enneagram, maybe you'd like to type in a 1 in our chat group so that we roughly know whether have you heard of it. If you have no idea what does Enneagram means, you type a 0 over there. So this binary code 1 and 0. So we have a few ones. Chemistry is 0. Almost of them heard of it. Oh, my dear friend Chi Yong is here, 0. James, Ruth. Oh, so we have a fair share of both knows about Enneagram. And okay, I think we can't possibly be covering everything in a short 1 hour world. Okay, we spend days and weeks to have the causes, but let me just give an overview so that we have an understanding. In fact, today we will have opportunity to interview my dear friend. I shall not reveal which type she is now, but come, share the next slide to let you know. Yes, this is the different types of Enneagram. Enneagram basically means 9. In Chinese is 九型性格, 九重性格, 对不起. So from a peacemaker, all the way perfectionist, all the way to the challenger. Okay, if you realize that there are the 9 different types is further segregate into the body center, which is 8 to 1. They use their gut, to the heart center, which is from 2 to 4. They use their heart. They feel a lot about their own feelings and their people's feeling. And of course, the head center, which thinks a lot. Okay. I belongs to the heart center, and right in the middle, I'm the achiever. So to me, results are important, but it's for my feeling. We will go deeper into this, but Tammy, I got a good and a bad news for you here. You want to hear the good news or bad news first?
I'm usually a positive person, but right now I'm gonna say bad news.
Bad news. I always thought that Tammy is actually a type 7 enthus. But after further understand about her underlying motive, well, it may not be that true for those who are. Okay, I saw you. Okay, the bad news is that from the Enneagram perspective, that you really can't change your core Enneagram type. Meaning to say, if you have done an Enneagram test, you realize that you are, let's say, for example, a challenger, and you don't like yourself to be a challenger. I'm sorry. Usually, I would say it's quite rare or hard for someone because we actually develop our core Enneagram in our first 8 years of our formative years, growing up years. That grows our DNA. But the good news is that we can develop all the different positive traits. Because when in formative year, we will start to form our worldview towards things. That drive us in autopilot. How do we perform? But the good news is that we can and we should be developing all the different positive traits of each of the different personality. In fact, when someone has a higher mastery, we call it, they actually realize that he possesses all the different nine traits, and you'll find it very hard to actually put him in any box. Okay, and I also want to share about these two presupposition towards Enneagram. Number one, there's no single type that's better or worse off than another. It doesn't mean that you are let's say a helper means you are the better one, or the peacemaker, which is deemed to be the crown of Enneagram. It's not really about what you like or dislike. So it's really about finding out and accepting who you are. So that's the one. And actually, the best person to discover your Enneagram type is actually not an Enneagram test. It's not an Enneagram coach. It's actually yourself. Through studying, through patient observing yourself, being candid to yourself. Candid is a very important thing because I have friends who, in the past when we do up this kind of profiler or personality test, we want to give model answer. So we are always, when we have a perception of who we want to become. So the way we answer, okay, let's say, for example, if it's an interview question, when you meet up with challenges, what do? To put up the good, frontage, right? You have the good, right, Tammy?
Yes, yes.
A lot of times Enneagram is being vulnerable. I remember the last episode I was openly being vulnerable to let Tammy and Xiaoqing discover about my weaknesses. But I guess being authentic, being real to ourselves, that's where we can really discover much more. So what I'm going to do today, like I mentioned, I will just run through quickly on each of this Enneagram type using our famous celebrities as an
Mm.
illustration, because I guess people don't know me, right? People will know Tom Cruise, right? So at least you get an idea, and but I guess by the end of the day, it will be easier for you to pick up what each type is all about, and I guess you will probably even have an idea without doing the test, which type you belongs to. Okay.
Mm.
Again, let me emphasize, Enneagram is not about stereotyping where you are. It basically mentioned about what types you possess, and from there, what is your underlying worldviews towards that. So let me quickly run through the 9 different types. Can? Tammy?
Yes.
So okay, the first one, we call it the perfectionist. Elon Musk is very one of them. You take a look at what he mentioned. I have an OCD on product-related issue. I only see what is wrong. I never see what is right. It is not a recipe for happiness. He himself mentioned it is not a recipe for happiness. Okay, the type 1 perfectionists, they are people, they are very meticulous. They are of very high standard. In fact, there's a saying for type 1 is they need to be right. To them, the world, if you take a look, I use black and white for this photo, is because to their worldview, it's about being right and wrong. And typically, when you work with a type 1, right? Imagine you have 10 tasks. And out of the 10 tasks he actually assigned you to do, you do 9 things very good. Only one not that good. He will point out that one thing. He will point you out to say, look, why are you not doing that? So I'm not too sure if your friends do experience such kind of leader, but they are very demanding at times, but they are very good. One of our investment head researcher, Kitwi, is actually a type 1. You can be assured our investment portfolio is near perfection, because to him there's only be right and wrong. So related occupation that is they suit this type of personality are usually auditors, compliance, sometimes police officers and investment specialists. So yeah, that's a type 1. We move on to a type 2. Yes, that's Mother Teresa, the famous helper. You quote what you mentioned: intense love does not measure, it gives. Type 2s are perpetual givers. They always feel the need to be needed. They always contribute. Mothers typically, as a role of a mother, has that kind of thoughts. But type 2 are more selfless. They are always the one that people like, because whenever you need for volunteers, they are usually the first one to ask for. For those seasoned trainers, if they were running Enneagram tests, right, the first person to ask for, to ask questions or volunteer, they will ask a type 2. Because type 2 have this weakness. It's very hard for them to say no. Sometimes they fall into this trap of being responsive to approval from other people. So they are people pleasers usually, and they may have forgotten what they truly need. That's some of the times of type 2. But type 2s are great friends. We all like type 2s because they're always there ready to give a helping hand. So occupations, profession that is related to this type 2 are generally social workers, teachers, caretakers, and things like that. So that's for a type 2. In my team, we have quite a number of type 2, so I always felt myself very pampered. So next, we have the type 3, the achiever. That is Tom Cruise.
That's you, right?
I'm definitely not as famous, as handsome, as talented as him. But if you take a look at what he said, I disagree with people who think you learn more from getting beat up than you do from winning. For type 3, the world is a contest. So it's really about winning. They say that it's not about winning, it's everything about winning. So to them, results are important, but generally they are much more driven. They are driven to achieve their results. They are ambassador of Nike. just do it. so
Just do
they
it.
are
Motto.
go-getter. Yeah,
Uh,
but on the other hand, because of that, usually they will accidentally fall into being a workaholic. They are a little bit more vain because they want to be appreciated. They are very concerned about how other people look and do it. And this was my homework in the past, as I was sharing in the last episode. So at work, a lot of organizations, especially sales organizations, they like that because they hit the quotas, they get things happen and they make it happen. The interesting thing is that rather a lot of people perceive that in the financial advisory industry, when sales are important, type 3 would generally form the majority. In unicorn per se, interestingly, I forms the minority. There's not a lot of type 3 within unicorn, but rather more of type 2
interesting.
and type 9. So
Interesting.
the keyword people describe type 3s are charmers. So they always contest and they want to appear successful. So that's a type 3. Okay, next we have, oh, that's interesting. Now we are moving on. Oh, this is still at a heart-centered, a type 4. A type 4 is the need to be special. They are very in tune to their feelings. Feelings. Some of our Singlish mentioned, right? You take a look at what Johnny Depp mentioned. If there's any message to my work, it is ultimately that it's okay to be different. They value themselves. There are those group of people that, if today I wear a shirt and I happen to bump into another friend wearing the same shirt, I tell you the next moment they will never wear the shirt again. To them, their identity is important. They are very in tune to their own feeling. A lot of times they can have this mood swing. So that's why they are sensitive to not particularly other people's, but to their own feelings. So there's another way to say type 4 that they're impossible to please. It's very hard to please a type 4 because they are always in their own world. But they find a lot of meaning in what they do. In whatever they do, they want to derive meaning. So occupations like designers, like architects, like even in the celebrities, maybe like Tammy yourself, who they are usually in the specific limelight to be special and different. So that's a type 4, Johnny Depp. So next we have, I quickly went through before we should have invited our guest speaker later. I shouldn't be talking too much. So type 5 is actually the observer, or we call it the silent, rather the thinker. Powers, this is a quote from Bill Gates, comes from not knowledge kept, but from knowledge share. If you take a look at his quote, knowledge is being shared twice. One word. Type 5 generally are knowledge hoggers. They need to be secured by having the know-how. They are usually analytical thinker, so they usually observe, and usually they are the more quiet person. So they will usually be there observing what's happened and give wise input. So that's for a type 5. So things like investment researcher, even data analyst, these are roles and occupation that suits type 5. Huh? I move on a little bit. Tammy, if there's any question, feel free to let me know. We're left with another 3 more to go. Type 6 is a loyalist. These are a group of people that value community a lot. In fact, they are the one that usually is the most misunderstood. Because to them, to protect a community, they are always the one that bring up the risk, the danger. Because in their worldview, the world is dangerous. I need to uh, truth is hidden. I need to form an alliance. I need to form alliance. To them, loyalty is very important. We have our partner William. He's a type 6, right? So he only have, and the only brand that he watch is one. He can follow one brand throughout his life. He's only having 2 occupations so far. So people in type 6 generally value community, and they like a sense of belonging, and risk manager, anything to do with risk management is a good role for them to be embarked into. So that's a type 6. Moving on, a type 7. I earlier mentioned the enthuse. I thought Tammy was an enthuse. She told me to, yeah, maybe she is. But generally, these people are the people who are very, exude positive energy. They are usually a very, very optimist to the world. They always like to explore new things. The mission is some people describe them as YOLO. You only live once. So they really have to experience life. One of the keywords you describe them is YOLO. I mean, optimist. But sometimes they can be appeared as someone that's less organized. They are the one that's the most spontaneous. Throw them any questions, any situation, they can react accordingly. Okay, so they are always the one that's light up the whole atmosphere and things like that. But many times on the other spectrum, they may not be able to deliver. So people always say that, hey, they don't deliver what they say. So that is for a type 7. Jobs and profession that's suitable for type 7, definitely it's not a 9 to 5 desk bound job. They like things that is exciting. They like to live new things. They don't like those typical mundane things. So they like new things. They like to be challenged. So that's a typical 7. And Jim Carrey is just one of them, a classic example. You see, my focus is to forget the pain of life. He doesn't even ignore pain. Forget the pain, mock the pain, reduce it, and laugh over it. So that's the kind of a perspective that they have. So next, we move on to a type 8. A type 8 is called the challenger, the reformer, or some of them say the boss. In fact, it's someone that I respected a lot, our late father, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. If you take a look at exactly what he said, even if in my sick bed, I've got covered. I can't see this word. And he will lower me down to the grave. If I feel something is go wrong, I will get up. To them, protecting is important. Power is important. Righteous is important. So they are always the one that protect people. Generally, they are the leader within the organization or the team. They are very decisive. They know what they want. They are definitely not a no-nonsense person. You imagine you go to, if you have read the memoirs of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, you will know that all the ministers always, when they go to there, he knows very clearly he's a no-nonsense person. So type 8s are very good leaders generally, but at times, sometimes they can be too dictative that people find it repelling. So the key word that describes them is actually courageous. They are always courageous. They're always in tune with their gut feeling. So that's a type 8. Let's move on to the last one, and that we have a peacemaker. After someone who dictates everything, we move to the next spectrum with a peacemaker. Often Winnie, in fact, a lot of people misunderstood her as an achiever and a perfectionist, because this is a sub-trait. But what drives her internally is really about peace, about reducing conflicts within one another. One of the easy way to find a type 9 usually is when you ask them what do they want to eat. Okay, make a guess, tell me what do they say?
Anything.
Anything, right? So they are usually very accommodating. They do not want to, they want to avoid conflicts. If you want this, okay, that's why we have the drink, right? Anything, whatever, right? But at times they may be at loss of what they are generally very warm people, very accepting, very harmonized, non-judgmental. In fact, the name is actually the crown of the Enneagram. So type 9s are well known. They're able to encompass, because they are able to collaborate. They're able to accept the different types easily. So they are the one that like procedure, but sometimes they may be deemed as sitting on the fence, Humpty Dumpty, so not knowing what to do, overly accommodating, absent mind. They are the people that doesn't like to be confronted with deadlines. So when they work with a peacemaker, it's very hard. For me, it was very hard as a type 3 to work with a type 9, because we demand results, we demand deadline, but type 9 say chill, cool, why avoid conflicts and things like that. But yeah, that's how a type 9 works. So briefly, we have tapped through all the different 9 types of Enneagram. And yeah.
Thank you, Rishi. I thought it was very insightful to see like different types of personality. And one thing I want to highlight that we think shared just now is like, it's not to box you in a certain type. It's just to let you know what's your core, and then you know the other traits as well. And you can take the good traits of other people, right? Also reduce your bad traits. So it's one thing. Okay, about this we mentioned our webinar today. You have the power to decide what's the direction of the webinar. So let's be the time to do a poll. And so now, audience, you have a chance to have a say about how this webinar is going to go later. So the question I'm going to poll to you is, shall we right now invite the guest speaker to come out and say hi, or be like, since I'm the audience, I have to say, I'm going to let her stay behind for a while. Let's just keep her for later. So which one would you choose? Would you let the guest speaker come and say hi right now, or let's just keep her for later? And meanwhile, while you're answering the poll, if you have any questions, you can type in the Q&A box over here. Remember, if you type in the chat, it might get lost in the chat. So you can type in the Q&A box. So when we have our Q&A segment later, we're gonna just go through the questions and answer all those questions for you also. And meanwhile, if you notice when we do the share screen function, when it goes to the full screen, you can actually choose a option to have a better viewing option, where you can click on the view options and can do side-by-side mode, and then you can see the speaker and the shared screen at the same time. So let's see how the poll has gone. Oh, amazing! That's a very different result from last week, right? So we have all of us, 74% actually, a whopping 74% say, let the guest speaker say hi. Seems like everybody's very excited to have her out. So let me just perhaps welcome Xiaoqing by first introducing her with her CV. So I'll need the help of our admin over here to show the CV of our guest speaker. And meanwhile, I was seeing the chat saying, seems life will be tough if we have type 1, how to become the perfect employee. That one, you can actually put it in the Q&A later. We can answer this. So yes, we're going to invite Xiaoqing later, and this is her CV. So Ma Xiuheng, I'll call her Xiaoqing. That sounds like more intimate, I feel. Okay, let's scroll down. She is a business leader and certified advanced planner. So over here, we have a lot of information about her. I'm just going to highlight a few that I'm seeing. Okay, she is an experienced business leader, demonstrated history of working with financial services industry. Looks like she got quite a few skills in negotiation, retail, sales, fashion, uh, FMCG, and whatnot. Oh, over here, let's take a look at her academic history. I can see her academic highlights. We have quite a few things. We have top student in PSLE. Oh, she took up additional Cambridge English course in secondary school. Oh, she has a postgraduate diploma in marketing. She's also certified advanced planner, accredited anagram coach. Seems like knowledge is a big thing to her. Maybe that's a hint about what her type is. If you recall what Wissing was sharing, which is the type that actually loves to have all kinds of different knowledge to back her up. Maybe you don't remember that. Never mind, we will tell you later. So while we're looking at her CV, maybe we can have Xiaoqing on screen. Oh, I see that her screen is on, her cam is on right now. Let me put my hands together to welcome Xiaoqing on screen. Welcome, Xiaoqing. Thanks for joining
Hi,
us.
Tammy. Hello, everyone. Wow, I'm seeing very warm welcome from Hui Feng, who said I'm in the same faculty as her. And then I think we have some audience here who already know what type I am. Impressive. I think Karen is already guessing it. Wow, very impressive.
Bill
Like,
Gates.
I'm glad I get to come out and say hi. Now I know how it feels like when Wissing was behind the screen for so long in the first session. He must be like going mad, right? Not able to speak for such a long time.
It's so nice that the audience wants to see you immediately. If not, you have to just show and wait at the background for a very long time.
I know, right?
A question for you, Xiaoqing, before I ask Wissing an important question. So over here, when we are talking about all these anagram types and 9 types, right? And then do you feel like any point, a lot of these actually applies to you, even though you know your type?
It's true. I feel like when Wissing was explaining through all the different 9 types, I could feel for some of them. And in fact, sometimes I don't feel so much for my own type anymore. Why is that so, Wissing? Do you want to share with us? Like, I do feel like sometimes I feel a bit like an achiever as well. And then the more I get in touch with Tammy, the more I feel like I want to be a fun-loving, a bubbly lady as well. How is that happening? Am I mutating? Do you think I'm mutating?
Now we're throwing the question directly to Wissing. Wissing, your turn to catch the ball.
I guess a lot of times it's about the power of association. That's one for sure. That's why it boils back to my earlier mention. Though we have a core type, which is the autopilot thing, through awareness, through deliberate association, through changing the way we think through things, we can actually develop a lot of positive traits. In fact, Xiaoqing, we worked with her for the last few years closely. She developed a very strong type 3, making things happen. It's just that she still need to think a lot before she do all the thing.
That was my question. So now that we kind of know that we have a lot of different traits, but there's a core type. So based on this, what type is Xiaoqing then?
Or why not we get our
Audience to guess.
audience to just type it out if they know, because it may not be easy just to take a look. I mean, I empathize our audience lah. If you just by taking a look at the CV, if you can know what type is it, I guess you are that really great. Christopher say what polar.
Just put it over in the chat. Because we
Okay, I
are
mean especially for friends who know her. What Sam said 5 thinker.
thinker, 5. We've got
Got
so
so
many
many
A's.
A's. Oh, that should be achiever, right? Or professionalist. Five, five
5,
law, lots of love.
5.
Okay.
The answer is pretty much majority saying 5.
Yeah. I guess a lot of friends. I've known her for a while, for the last few years, and one of the telltale signs, if you look at the resume, is that Xiao Jing is constantly pursuing for new knowledge. Her quest for knowledge to give her the sense of security is intense, at least to me. Going for courses. She's pretty young in this business, 6 years. She's one of the youngest business leader. Always wanting to upgrade herself in terms of getting herself as certified advanced planner. In fact, in Unicorn, there's only 3 certified advanced planners. She's happened to be one of them, being one of the youngest business leader, and she constantly upgrade herself, even becoming an Enneagram coach. In fact, today is very interesting, right? An Enneagram coach is being interviewed by another. So I say you should be the one sharing about yourself, not about me. But yes, she is a type 5. She is a thinker. So yeah, so we will take this opportunity to dissect her, right, Tammy?
Yes, time to dissect Xiaoqing when she's really like,
Uh,
I'm
last
so
episode,
vulnerable now.
the last episode, type 3s are very scared of being vulnerable, being open to a weakness. As a type 5, usually they do not like to be exposed themselves to the limelight. So I'm pretty sure now Xiao Jing is very uncomfortable, but for the sake of our R factor,
Extremely.
she's contributing. So shall we get a team to take a look at some of the worldviews of what typical type 5 is, and if it's possible, Xiao Qing, you can probably share some of your real feelings and thoughts about it, so that it won't be a case that I'm superimposing that to you. Can we
No,
have the slide up?
am I supposed to share about myself? No, right? Today.
Okay, let's take a look at the type 5, or you call it the investigator as well, or the observer, the thinker. Okay, the one in terms of their worldview, how do the underlying view they see is that they are the master of their private world, built by my superior commitment to special knowledge. Okay, there are 2 keywords I want everyone to take away: private and knowledge. As I mentioned earlier, they wanted their own space. To them, having their own space is important. They do not like people to go and kacau them or always probe them. In fact, they don't like that. I've tried that. I suffer. So they need their own space, and they are someone that has a quest for knowledge, because to them, by knowing, they give them a sense of security. So if you look into their strength, in fact, they are people that are very, very analytical. They are usually, because of these analytical skills, they are able to make wise decisions. I often work with Xiao Qing, and I get wise, inputs from her, because she can think well. A very logical person, a very objective person. But of course, that translates to someone that is lesser of emotion. She may be seen as someone that is unreachable, especially for those who keep thinking. The thoughts in your mind, the rest of people may not be able to apprehend. That's why they call the unreachable loner. So you don't go there, and because they need their own space, a lot of times they may appear arrogant. When I first start working with Xiao Qing, I always thought that this girl don't know what when you ask her question, she just don't reply you. Then you would think that, how come? But it's just because that they need that space to think, and of course, because of this thinking ability, sometimes they get over paralysis by analysis. So that's generally their weaknesses. But also generally at work, can we have the next slide, please? In terms of the keyword to describe them, often than not, is intellect. So in work, when you work with a type 5, they need predictability. You can't give them spontaneous. Just now, I tried to give Xiao Qing a spontaneous one to let her describe herself. Immediately, she reject me. No. Okay. In fact, she will get zoned out and freeze when unexpected questions. But of course, you can train up. At times as a speaker, Xiaoqing performed very well to me in the last session when there was impromptu question came out. She spoke well, she carried herself well. It's because she overcome some of this weakness. Which I want to mention is that Enneagram is knowing about ourselves. I think someone posted a question about how do we then improve our trait. I think the first thing we need to do is to be aware of why are we behaving in such a way. Why are we behaving? So if you ask Xiaoqing to do with money, she's actually someone that's very 很小心, she'll be very stingy. I think there's a wrong spelling there, right? Stingy on money. She don't anyhow spend. One of the key trait for type 5 is that they like to conserve energy. To them, because they believe that there's not enough money, resources are scarce. So in Chinese, they're saying, 可以不说话就不说话. So they usually are more quiet over there. So yeah, that is actually what I would describe as our type 5, the investigator. Qiaoqing, what do you think?
I will
Wow,
love
so now I can don't talk already, right? I think you just given me permission that I don't have to talk. So keep my mouth shut.
So since Xiaoqing don't want to respond, it's fine, it's fine. It's time for our audience to respond then. Time audience, I would love to have your response. I'm going to do a poll right now for you to decide which direction, which topic we want to hear. And then the next one is a question for we sing. So now looking at the poll, I have two options for you to choose the direction over here. Poll option number 1. Can we have the poll up, please? The poll option number 1 is what would you like to know? Okay, would you like to know how to be a good support for a type 5 person if you have type 5s around you, be it your spouse, your children, your colleague, your bosses? Or you'd be like, I have a few enemies I think is type 5. So how to be disruptive to a type 5? Which one would you like to hear? Would you like to hear how to be a good support? Or would you like to hear from me saying how to be disruptive to a type 5? Time to respond in the poll. And of course, if you have any questions, just put on the Q&A. If we have time, we'll answer for it. Or if not, subsequently later at the end, we have a Q&A session. We will answer one by one when we have time. Okay, so can we see the poll results? Does everybody want to hear a support or a disruptive? Oh, actually, say quite close. I'm quite amazed. We have 53% wants to hear how to be disruptive to a type 5. Cynical people we have in the audience. Okay, I have to say it's very close. It's basically one vote apart. So look like we say will have to tell us how to be disruptive to a type 5.
Okay. We should ask what irritates Xiaoqing. Then she is able to give you all the answers. I think it's quite a fair share. But in fact, just now earlier, as we were just happily sharing, I've shared some of the key things. If you want to be disruptive to them, don't give them that space to think. Always demand. Xiaoqing always don't like, I say, quite, faster. She'll be very irritated because she just need that time. And when I say that, hey, you are very rude that you don't answer me. So she will not be able to reply promptly because she's digesting a lot in terms of this. So space is really very important and information is important. When you want a type 5 to be, delivering some results or having some deliverable, giving them the necessary information is important. So on a contrast, how to make a type 5 disruptive? Don't give them the information, yet expect them to have the results.
They will be very stressed, right?
Yeah, but for the type 3, like for example myself, I will think differently. I will think that it's a challenge. I want to overcome it. Yeah, you may not give me the answers. I will prove to you that I can find the results. So type 3 and 5 can be a little bit different, but sometimes type 3 over depend on themselves and they work too hard, or rather they push themselves too much. That's why it becomes a workaholic. But for type 5, if you really want to disturb them, it's really, constantly bombard them, don't have to think. And that's a two major thing. Of course, if you talk about growth, I'm more inclined towards how to support and to help a type 5 to grow. Although the tribe has mentioned you want to know how to disrupt a type 5. But generally type 5, because they are over analytical, they have to move towards being a type 8. Someone was asking, how do we then develop and train on each of our type? Of course, we can go in very detail. In each type, there's actually a growth path. That's what I like about Enneagram. It's not only a personality profiler tool that tells you how you behave. It tells you the underlying motivations, the reason why and why you think, and it also offers you a growth-centric plan. For example, a type 5, when they need growth, they should move towards a type 8. Type 8 are people that's very decisive. They go by their gut feel. So while they may have limited information, they go by their gut feel what is right. So many a times, type 5 tends to paralyze because they don't know what is, should this be done is right or wrong. So they want to use facts to justify that. 8 doesn't use facts. 8 use their gut feel. So they are decisive. So one of the growth paths for a typical type 5 who thinks a lot is actually to move towards type 1. But on a contrast, when a type 5 gets too stressed out, when you see Xiaoqing too stressed out, you know what he will do? She will move to become a type 7, which is a enthuse. She will start to, wow, never mind lah. Let go everything. Anyway, just be happy and things like that. So these are extreme ends. Of course, if you look further in Enneagram, you have subtypes, you have your wings and things like that. But I just want to share that nobody possesses just one type. Like I mentioned again, everybody. It's just that is her core autopilot nature. If you today, in the most tired time, Chao Qing, he will zone out one. Unlike a type 3 or type 1, even when they're tired, they behave very differently. Yeah, so I would say that give her space or don't give her space if you don't want to demand the thing for her. And I also share with type 5, Chao Qing, when I work with them, I remind them actually it's not about the work, but the people. Remember, type 5s usually are less emotional sensitive. So they always think that work, analytical skills is important. So it is their strength that will bring them who they are. But it will also be the strength that will be the stumbling block for their growth. So I always share with them an analogy from being hardworking in acquiring knowledge, very hardworking in acquiring knowledge, to having the hard work, HEART, to connect with people. Literally, I see how Xiaoqing have grown to become a better team player. He has over time as we work together, I see that now she's focusing on the people around her, and we always say that it's the people that give work meaning, not the work that give people meaning. So it's the people that give what we work meaningful. And I guess one way or another, now she's running a practitioner as a financial advisor. That also helps her as well because the very nature of occupation needs to meet up with people. She have a lot of rejection in the past. People don't feel that they get connected. But now she gets better and better. Yeah, so that is something I want to share about how we can help or disrupt a type 5. Would you agree, Xiaoqing?
Yes, totally agree. So one way to describe a type 5 is like, because we are the master of our private world, right? So we feel that we are good in doing what we are doing. So if someone kind of disturb me and keep rushing me for a deadline, I'll feel that I don't feel trusted, and then I'll feel quite frustrated. Or if I have someone breathing down my neck, let's say a boss who keep on asking me, when are you going to get this done, get that done? Those are the things that can really disrupt me as well. Yeah, so I don't like it when people breathe down my throat or make me feel distrusted, because usually a type 5 will be someone who will get her job done very independently, and they are quite good at getting their things done on time. So that's the part of the part of being disrupted. So yes, you want to disrupt. And then I think we have a very interesting question from the audience, and let's try to answer those. And I really like Hui Feng because I haven't met her, but it feels like she's like she knows me so well because she has been asking me questions. She's in the same faculty as me in the past. So she asked how to stop being a type 5. I'm not sure whether we say answer you on that, but one way to do that is really to move towards the growth path of an 8. Because a 5 like the private space, if they can be not in the limelight, that would be the best. But the 8 is the one that really want to take control of the whole situation, want to be the one who is assertive. So to stop being a type 5, it means to grow my strength towards being more assertive, taking control of the situation, and then really leading rather than staying behind the scene. So that's the answer to Hui Feng. And then Karen also asked.
Interestingly, Xiaoqing, if I may ask, she said, I empathize you, Xiaoqing,
Yes,
the tiring group.
it's a tiring group. Hui Feng, why? So interesting. Why will you empathize with me? Are you also a type 5? I'm just very curious. How do you know that it's very tiring to be a type 5?
I know Hui Fang personally. She can type in the chat group to see whether she feels that she's a type 5. But I have a sensing she's not a type 5. I will share with her separately. Or if I say yes, maybe type 5, maybe my assessment is wrong.
Oh, she's a type 5. That's why she also feels tired all the time. And that's why we are so good at conserving energy. Like for me, I can take a power nap like 5 minutes and my energy get recharged as well. So just now, Karen also asked about how would Xiaoqing react in such circumstances when I'm being disrupted. I'll feel very annoyed. I'll feel stressed. I'll feel like really hiding back into my hole again, not wanting to talk to the person who, let's say, disrupt me. So that's usually how I would react.
Mm.
Yeah, and then chemistry say it's good that sometimes you don't think too much. Exactly. So in order not to think too much, I'm very glad I have good friends like we say who doesn't allow me to think. He'll just make me do it. Like every time I have something on my brain that I want, I always use the word I think. I think we can do it next week. I think this is good. And then we say will be like, let's do it. How about next week? Just fix the time and we'll get it done. So in order to support a type 5, the best way is really to set timeline, set deadline, and make sure that she doesn't hide into her hole again.
Yep.
Okay, Karen has another very interesting question. Is it possible to have different personality between work and personal? Let me put that question back to Rising.
Definitely, with the role that we play has a certain inclination to certain traits of different types. Like I mentioned earlier, mothers usually are type 2. They need to be needed. So much so that sometimes it can be manipulative. But I think that there is some core type. So the line get blurry sometimes because we are conforming ourselves to the role that we have. I quote example as a financial advisors, we have to be type 6 because type 6 look into risk carefully. That's why inherently we may start to train out ourselves. But Enneagram talks about in an autopilot mode. Meaning to say the core type is in autopilot mode. What is actually the way that you usually behave into it? So to answer the question, is it possible to have different personality? Yes. I wouldn't say no, but as much as possible, it's about accepting yourself, knowing what role you are playing. But of course, we do see some extreme example. The person in the workplace is a reformer, but going back home, suddenly become a peacemaker to the wife. We do have such kind. I do many of such friends. So I would say that the society has changed. Humans have evolved quite a lot. It's not as simple as I'm a type 9, I'm a type 2, and things like that. Which answers to Sean, if I'm not wrong. What are the different percentage of each personality type in Singapore society? I paraphrase this question. I don't have the answer with me, but I guess in Singapore, a lot of them belongs to type 9. 不敢讲话, just listen to the government and things. Because we are being shaped in the Oriental upbringing at the same time of how the society is being formed. Generally, if you talk about the Western society, like US, they are more vocal, they are more outspoken, they will air out a view. Type 4s are more in the individualists are much more prevalent in the Western economy. So there is a I would say that relevancy or association with where we were brought up, the environment that we have. So it's about relativity. So to answer that, yes, in Unicorn I was sharing, interestingly, they thought that this industry should have a lot of go-getters, right? Type 3 achievers. But interestingly, Unicorn attracts a lot of type 2 helpers and peacemaker. I guess one way or another is also our culture within Unicorn because we advocate win-win situation. We advocate listening to our clients. We don't chase for sales. Rather, we believe to be our client's friend, to hear them out, to listen to them and things like that. So I hope that answered to Sean's question. But I thought that we are going to have a poll to let us know how does Xiaoqing behave, right? Tammy?
Yes, I have this burning question over here. Meanwhile, and once again, thank you for answering those questions in the chat. As per we go, if you have any questions that actually kind of matches, we can just go along and just answer these questions. So the question I want to ask all of you in the audience, very simple one, which I'm going to ask Xiaoqing later, but I will love to hear your response first. Perhaps we can have the poll up over here, poll number 4. If given a situation where you're very unhappy with your boss, right, with your colleagues and in your job, what would you choose to do? Would you choose to fire your boss without a job, or security first, I secure a job first before I fire my boss, or live it up to fate, YOLO? So which one would you choose? And after seeing your answers, I'm going to ask Xiaoqing the same question. So Xiaoqing, meanwhile, you can think about your answer. If given this situation where you're very unhappy with your boss, colleagues, or in your job, what would you choose to do? And I can see Wissing is playing with a coin. I think that one can be used later. So while you have your poll coming in, Xiaoqing can think about the question later. So over here, if it's me, I think I'll actually secure a job first before firing my boss. But it's so hard to say because I'm a freelancer. And that's why I don't even have a boss in the first place. Oh, I have a whopping 53% of us who is thinking like me to secure a job first before firing my boss. And I have 16% fire my boss without a job. And I have 32% who says leave it up to fate. It's too hard for me to decide. Okay, so looks like 53% majority of us is to choose security. How about Xiaoqing? Which one would you choose if given a choice?
I think the answer is probably quite obvious which one I'll choose based on my personality type, right? But again, I think that my team has been really empathetic. Before they get me to answer, they put a poll first, they buy me some time so that I can prepare to answer the question. So that's really the best way that you can be supporting a type 5. So not surprising, I really behave the same as the majority here. To me, definitely finding a job first before firing a boss. But in Chinese, there's this phrase that says, 人算不如天算. So despite the fact that to me, certainty is important, I don't react well to unexpected situation. For someone who is a prudent, conservative like me, I think for sure I'll definitely take a longer time to make a decision, to think through my career path seriously before I throw in that letter. But what happened to me in my mid-30s was that the higher force up there, they decided another path of me. And that path, it changed my life quite substantially. So back then in my mid-30s, I was in a global MNC in the perfume and cosmetics industry. Company was going through a major restructuring, going through M&A, merger and acquisition. So in a span of just 1 year, I saw that all my directors sitting inside the room, they were all leaving their job one by one. It starts to get into me that I couldn't ignore and continue to believe that my job is going to be very safe. So indeed, I took 1 year to plan my exit out. I explored a few options. Back then, I was in travel retail, duty-free manager in the perfume and cosmetics. So back then, my playground was like in the airport duty-free store. One of my friends said that, wow, you have a great work. It seems that you're not doing anything back in your YSL day. It's called duty-free. Does that mean that you're free of duty? Well, I wish that was true, but it wasn't. Yeah, so most logical option for me, of course, is to, from perfume and cosmetics, move to a different category, whether it's in liquor tobacco, whether it's in a fashion side. And indeed, I have a very interesting offer, which is in the fashion house, offering me to be now dealing, instead of perfume and cosmetics, dealing with the luxury sunglasses, the fashion side. It really appealed a lot to me. But when I was thinking deeper, I felt that could I be just repeating that cycle, going through the same cycle that I went through in my last job? Of course, worse still, I have to adjust to a new environment. But let's say when the pandemic comes like now, the airport duty-free store would still be dead. And I didn't want to go into that situation whereby it's going to be impacted by the economic crisis. I don't know when I'm going to lose my job again. And of course, back in corporate, in order to get more increment, it means that I have to climb the corporate ladder, I have to travel more, deal with more stress, more PR of the bosses, which was exactly what a type 5 wouldn't enjoy. So the question that I asked myself is, will I be happy doing the same thing over and over again for the next 30 years? And the answer was quite clear. I don't think this is how I want to live the second part of my career. So then I sat down, I decided to ask myself, what do I really want to get in my career? And this word came to my mind, and that word is called sustainability. Before I continue, maybe I can get the audience to answer this question. What does a sustainable career really means to you?
Oh, it seems like Xiaoqing don't like spontaneous, but I want to throw a spontaneous thing to the audience.
Oops.
The question she asked is, what does a sustainable career means to you? That's a very good question because everybody has different perspective about what sustainability should be, right? Like how long it can be, or
What
is
would
it
that mean to you, Thames?
and for me, it will be Unlike you, I don't want to spend some time creating something and then start over again in another 3 or 5 years. To me, sustainability is longevity. Yeah, that's something for me. But it's not just money sense or like the future. I think sustainability is whether I can tahan in the job also. It's like if I'm gonna be so bored till death in the job, that's also not sustainable, even though it might has a future, right? So I think for me it works in different ways. I love to see the answers. I have James answering here. Passive income while letting money work. Oh, surely that's sustainable.
Comes quick, doesn't it? Maybe. Wow, Wally, walk around look important. I like that too, and let the income still continues to comes in. Wow, totally agree with chemistry. Maybe I can have my admin to be sharing the screen at this moment on what was on my mind about 6 years back. What does sustainable really means to me? It's quite close to what some of you mentioned here, and I totally agree with Tam that it's not just the financial sense, financial side, but it's also about the whether I'm able to enjoy such a career over the long term. Yes, if you look at this cartoon, it's very common. Usually, an employee will go to the boss. Boss, I'd like to talk about my career path, and the boss will be like, okay. And then the boss will be telling that my plan is to work you until your health deteriorates and your skills are obsolete. Then I'll downsize you. So this is so bad, right? And immediately the employee say, I'm you. Then the boss will be like, really? I've never had a plan work this fast before. So that's a jokes aside, but that's typically how I felt in my corporate days. Basically, if the person above you doesn't go, you don't have a chance to get promoted. And it's more of the chance only comes when there's a gap there. So can I have my admin to flash the first one? What sustainable really means to me? Doing something that I enjoy with income that meet my needs will be enough. Exactly. So to me back then, I wanted to be able to decide at what age I want to work until. I had a senior back then in her 50s, and she wasn't happy, but she told me that I have no choice. I'm already in my 50, and that woke me up. I didn't want to be in a situation that I have no choice, and that's exactly what I didn't want. And the second one, please. Can we have the Amin? Yes. At that point in time, my parents was also getting old. I had them in mind, and I wanted to be with them when they most need me. I know that one day, like it or not, their health will start to deteriorate, and that is the period of time that I really want to be with them. And I wanted a career that will allows me to be with them, and not being putting my job at risk and not putting my income at risk. So that to me was sustainability. And the last one was I start to wonder, am I in an industry that prospers during crisis or suffers during crisis? And again, it was clear. It was an industry that the moment back then there was some flu that hit, the whole travel retail was like down. Nobody was traveling. The travel ban was in. And during economic crisis, again, travel budget will get cut and therefore my job could also be at risk. So these were the things that I was looking at, and it got me quite concerned. And then thereafter, I was exploring other options. Let's look at what I was attracted to. So what appeals to me, and the picture says it all. I wanted to be able to decide the remuneration based on my effort, similar to what James mentioned about having that recurring income, same as what chemistry mentioned also about having that income, but I can just walk around and look important. So I can be that Miss Wally. That sounds so good, right? And the next one, the ability to decide on my working hours. So in the past, no matter how much time I put in, the salary stays the same. But currently, I really get the ability to be deciding on my remuneration, deciding on my off day. I don't have to apply leave. I can go for one week leave without having to get approval from anyone. Just as long as I have a support team to be covering me during that period, I think it will be great. And then next, I also want a career that the longer I stay, the more I can earn. I start to realize that if I were to stay in my corporate job, the longer I stay there, there's a high chance that of retrenchment, and thereafter to get re-employed, chances are I could probably have to start out with a lower income. And recently, one of a new colleague joined us. He is in his late 50s, already. Of course, when he joined, he didn't ask for much income because he said that as long as I have an income now, I'm more than happy. So it's the stage whereby you no longer have that ability to be commanding an income. You just have to take whatever income and whatever job that is available. So that's exactly something that I didn't want. Next. Also, when I look at this financial industry, it's not only crisis-proof, but it's an industry that actually prosper during a crisis, which I'm going to share a little bit more later, how this can be true. Do we have the last point? Yes. And like what most of you mentioned, I wanted an income that can continue when I stop work at an old age. So that was what I had in mind before I finally decided to make this big jump, which is definitely not how a typical type 5 would behave. And like you imagine a financial consultancy job, and a type 5 not liking to talk, not liking to interact, only like to think in the brain, it's definitely not a job that appeals to a type 5 or not a job that a type 5 could easily succeed in. But I really took me through this thought process to decide what I want to do in my next career.
I realize your thought process is quite interesting. Like you mentioned, it's really not like a type 5 though, how you think about something. But there are certain clues that is still like a type 5.
Yes, I'm sure I'm sure Wee Sing will agree with that.
Definitely. Tammy didn't realize that one simple question that actually Xiaoqing can have so much thought process in thinking through the entire thing.
Yes, this is a type 5.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I just have two points as I was hearing from Xiaoqing. You see, typically for a type 5, because now we are talking about in an anagram, for someone who is thinking. So she just went through a thought process. In fact, she's harnessing her skills as a thinker. The difference is that she's thinking long term than short term. You know, when you think short term, a lot of things, problems, it becomes too big, you get paralyzed. But when you think long term, she's applying that analytical skills, thinking through the process. Is this a career going to be sustainable? Am I going to be remunerated accordingly? You know, am I getting more and more well paid as I progress? Is there growth and things like that? So it's so important to put our strength into the right place. I got an example just now you mentioned about the coin, right? I
Yes.
share that if you take a look at the retrospective, if this coin bigger or smaller than my head?
Obviously, it's smaller than your head.
All right. So this is when it is so-called far away from the vision side. But if I put this coin suddenly near towards the camera, it becomes bigger or smaller? Bigger than my head.
Yes, now covering your
Yeah.
head. Yeah,
Now
bigger.
can't see your head.
You cannot see my head, right? Even though my head is so big, you can't see, right? The issue is how do we see our challenges in life? You know, when you're at level 1, you take a look at the car, it looks very big. When you're at level 10, you look at the same car, it gets smaller. So as a thinker, we can be paralyzed when we overthink. But when we start to think longer term, when put time into perspective, you realize they become more prudent, making more prudent decisions. So that is actually the first thing I thought was interesting when I hear from her. Second thing is actually, especially for a type 5, in fact, for friends who does possess this kind of thinking aspect, when we are making a decision, look for a subject matter expert. You know, for especially for an analytic person, she needs a career change. She should be asking around for information from real practitioner on the industry. You know, to get there, to feed her with accurate information and detail so that she can make an informed decision, not naysayer, not those friends who are not and perceive it to be that way. I always share with my friends that don't hear from an academician, hear from a practitioner on the ground. On the ground, what does she do? How does she do it? How does they feel it? And you can feel that sincere with them. Many times before friends wanted to consider in our industry, I say better consider carefully. Don't think that it's going to be easy, a quick money, a quick, money making machine or things like that. You have a reputation to answer to. So it's about all this awareness. I think is important for Xiaoqing who is sharing. Of course, I want to add on. This is not only a type 5 thing that we need to analyze, before we make a decision, right? We end up being paralyzed. You know, in Harvard Business Review, a research has actually shown that we as human beings are inclined to stay in misery than to move into uncertainty. So misery is even more powerful, it can be even less powerful than this thing called uncertainty. So it's an example, and we wake up in the morning, right? We know that in our comfortable bed, we have this tendency to want to stay in a comfortable bed than to move out of a comfort zone. Even though we need to know that we need to wake up, to fulfill our role and responsibility. So that is a DNA of the human being. So if you go back to the poll, whether do we quit first or we find a job first, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. We just need to understand ourselves better, and actually do our best with changing the right mindset. In this case, think long term, ask the right people for the experience. Yeah, that's all I want to share about Xiaoqing's sharing.
Thank you, Racing. I think it was quite insightful for you to pick out these points and to highlight to us. And you mentioned something that I thought was pretty important, because a lot of us love to get advices from the people around us, because
Yeah.
like, oh, I ask my parents, I ask my friends, so I think that person is knowledgeable, and you ask the person. But actually, it's the subject matter expert that's more important than practitioner. Like if I'm gonna cook egg fried rice, I'm not gonna ask somebody who doesn't cook, right? I'm going to ask somebody who's a chef, right? I think it kind of makes sense if I put it in an analogy like that. But it's just us that just keeps on doing things which is actually quite opposite. Uncle Roger. I wanted to mention that egg fried rice is Uncle Roger. But honestly, Uncle Roger doesn't really know how to make egg fried rice. He can only these people. But that aside, I have a poll that I want to ask all of you, because like we mentioned, we want to ask you which direction you want to go, right? The last poll I'm going to ask all of you. Now, I would love to hear from you. The poll, please. Would you love to hear from Xiaoqing her success story, or would you want Xiaoqing to share with you her setback story? Because now one last question I'm going to ask Xiaoqing, so you can decide. Can we have the poll up for us to choose? So what is the question we're gonna have Xiaoqing to answer? Are we gonna ask Xiaoqing to share with us a success story, or we're gonna ask Xiaoqing to share with us her setback story? Are you the positive people or the negative people? Let's see, because just now, sometimes you're cynical, sometimes you're positive. I can't make sense of what you will decide right now. Okay, after the poll, I'm going to see the results, and then Xiaoqing, you can get ready to share with us either your setback story or your success story. Meanwhile, over here, after Xiaoqing shared with us, I would love to let you know that we'll still have some questions that we can answer along the way. So if you have time, both our speakers, if you see anything appropriate, a good time to mention any of the questions, feel free to do that. So, oh, amazing! We have 68% of our audience who would love a setback story. Okay, it seems like the same thing for the last episode as well, right?
Yeah, seems like
Fantastic.
nobody likes to hear success story, but it's more interesting to hear about setback, right?
Setback stories, right? People like drama.
All right. First setback, I think I probably touched on a little bit earlier. It was actually my whole life has been quite a blessing. Has been smooth sailing. Actually, no big ups and downs. So the first setback that I had in my life was actually the retrenchment. To many, it feels like what is so bad about retrenchment? You get a package, you get to choose the job that you want. But back then, 6 years ago, when I was going through that, it wasn't. Trust me, it wasn't an easy moment for me to go through. After going through that whole thinking process, I decided to do the work that I like. And I decided to find a career that allows me to lead the life that I want and the ability to be with my family when they most need me. So indeed, when I was exploring this career with Unicorn, I was told that I only need 4 ingredients to succeed in this career. And that 4 ingredient was sincerity, hard work, integrity, and honesty. So I told myself these 4 ingredients, it seems like something that I'll have, is the way that I was being brought up anyway. It doesn't seem like something that is difficult for me to be having. And I was also asking myself, since I'm going to be working for the next 30 years, if I were to just take 1 year out of that 30 years to be trying out something different, I'm going to put my heart and soul and my hard work into running this practice. So I don't see how I'm going to fail. And let's say if really I were to fail because of my laziness, because of my refusal to learn, I think the worst that can happen to me is really just going back to my corporate world. And between working for 30 years and 29 years in the corporate world, to me, there is a lot of difference. And that's the reason why I decided to take that leap of faith, because I was also telling myself, if I were to succeed in that 1 year, I'm very sure that the next 29 years is going to be very different for me. And indeed, it became the best decision that I made for myself. So again, looking back, that was the first retrenchment. And it was not easy when I was served that letter, even though 1 year back I was already preparing, I was preempting that to come. By the time I was served that letter, I actually already have all my exams cleared with Unicorn. I was ready to move out anytime. But the feeling of, it's just like, in younger days when you're dating someone, you know that this boy may not be the final husband that you're going to marry, but then the boy suggested that break up earlier than you that kind of feeling. You still don't feel good, right? The feeling of being ditched and dumped is still not a nice feeling to have.
Yes.
So back then, two young kids at home. My second child was only 1 year old. I had my elderly parents to feed, a lot of mouths to feed. There's a lot of fear, anxiety, and uncertainty. And more above than that, it was really the hit to the pride, because of the fact that I've always been overachieving the KPI that they set to me. So when I was the chosen one, it was a not easy moment. But then when I joined Unicorn, it actually took me less than 2 years to get back my last strong income. Actually, it wasn't that difficult for me because there was already a guaranteed success system that Unicorn set up. Basically, I know that as long as I diligently follow what I need to do on a daily basis, it's not going to be difficult to allow me to get back my last strong income. So I guess here comes the setback that a lot of people wants to hear, right? Seems like everything is so easy. Even when I go through this career switch, it seems quite smooth sailing. So indeed, the first major setback that I have in Unicorn came about in 2019. So that is 3 years back. Back then, I was expanding my team. I was still functioning as a very hardworking financial consultant. And again, hard work got me to where I was in the past. But I realized that when I continue to use my hard work, moving into a different function from a financial consultant working individually to now leading a team, the same personality trait, which is a hard work, it actually also lead to my downfall. That year alone, I had 4 teammates leaving me one by one. 2 of them was my relative, and then 2 others was like, I felt really abandoned, and that feeling was worse than when I went through that retrenchment. And my morale really crashed. In that same year, to make it worse, my dad was also diagnosed with end-stage cancer. I was told that he was only left with 3 weeks if left untreated. So at that moment in time, I really wanted to like put down everything, be with him at the hospital, be with him during the final days. So what I took away that year was that yes, indeed, my hard work, my capability was able to bring me some success in my initial years. But if I continue to use that, it's going to bring me to my downfall as well. So 2019 was indeed a year of consolidation for me. With all this that was happening in my personal life, in my work life, what really helped me to climb back up again was really the support, guidance, care, and concern from my management, who give me a lot of guidance on how I can be managing my business while taking care of my dad. And when I took up that advice, indeed, that month, my income was actually a breakthrough. I became the most productive because I have so little time to be able to use it for my practice. I have to allocate most of my time to be with my family. And on top of that, I also have a great fellow business leader to helping me, like Bising and William as well. So back then, I really called them a lot. Like, can you help me take this training? Can you help me to meet the clients of my new consultant? So I was quite shameless in asking for help. And that did help me to get through the crisis that I went through in 2019. And of course, from my management, from fellow business leaders who are my peers, I also have my business owners who chose to stay on in my business unit, although I was in quite a bad shape. So with that, let me just get the admin to share with us something that is quite personal and private. I'm actually going to share with all of you my income growth, because people will be thinking, are you sure you can get that income back so easily? So yeah, so in 2014, that was my last strong income in corporate. 2015, it was dropped by half because it was my first year in Unicorn, and I joined Unicorn about half in July 15. So first half of the year, I got my retrenchment package. I got some income there before it went totally to zero. Then in 2016, I almost recover my last strong income. In fact, at the beginning of 2016, it was already getting back the income. Then in 2017, that was my initial years. 2018, you see that it's very smooth sailing when I was doing it on my own. And then from 2018 to 2019, it was minus 25%. That was a time where I was expanding my team, facing some challenges there. I have people leaving me. That's because I was just very good at working. Besides other things, and a leader is very different from just being able to work. It's a very different skill set that we have to adopt. And with that, last year, with the pandemic, with COVID around the corner, with circuit breaker, tell me, do you think, oh, how come they share it so quickly? I didn't get a chance to ask anyone. My admin too efficient. But anyway,
answer already. Sorry.
yeah, everyone saw the answer already, so let's just flash it. So yeah, indeed, last year, I did have quite an exponential business growth at 70%. Main reason, of course, was because of the pandemic. There was also other opportunities, and when my team expanded, so that actually was quite surprising for me. And it didn't end there. So this year, although it's only 6 months into 2021, already I have I'm very close to already exceeding my whole year of income last year. And that's, can we have the next slide? And that's really because of the investment returns that we have been generating for our client. The great news in our career is that we really prosper when our clients prosper. So this increase in income is especially happy for us because it means that our clients are all gaining from that investment profit, thanks to the opportunities that we had last year. Yeah.
Thank you, Xiaoqing, for sharing all this, I would say P&C information about your about the story about your dad, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't easier for you previously 3 years ago. And good news, I think your dad is okay right now, much better, right?
He is, even though the doctor told him that he's only left with 3 weeks, right? It wasn't something that he wanted to believe. So together as a family, we were giving him a lot of support. And today he can actually climb up 16 flights of stairs. And he's still doing his qigong every day. He's doing his translation, spending time very actively. He's even doing intermittent fasting, going on a salad meal every day. And he's doing great, yeah.
So much healthier than me.
Oops.
Talking about that, first, I shared a lot with us. I would also love to continue, engaging with our friends over here. We have a few questions we would like to perhaps touch a little bit on before we moved on to the rest of the segment. And over here, perhaps Xiaoqing or we say you can pick the questions you want to answer. Maybe you can pick 1 or 2 quick ones, and then we move on to the next one.
Yeah, I think we should answer this first question that we have from an anonymous attendee who asked, what advice would you give to an Enneagram Type 9 who is considering a career switch? So this person obviously has some knowledge about Enneagram already, and he or she probably knows that he's a Type 9. And Type 9, initially as a Type 5, I almost mistaken myself as a Type 9 as well because of this indecision, this procrastination, that I find it very hard to make decisions. So I also have very high traits of 9. So I guess I could be able to answer that question quite well. You probably realize that I was taking a super long time to come to this career decision as well. So at the end of the day, what I was asking myself is instead of choosing the work that I want to do, I wanted to be able to choose the life that I want to lead. And I really wanted to have a more long-term view versus just looking at the next jump. Because in Chinese, we say, 人无远虑，必有近忧. When you don't have a long-term vision, when you don't think further, we will always be troubling ourselves with all the short-term problems that comes our way. But when I start to have this vision of what a sustainable career really means to me, that the career option becomes quite clear to me. So I hope the earlier sharing that I did give you some insight of what the Type 9 really should go through when considering a career change. And the other thing that I advise is really to seek a professional in the career aspect. And I'll be more than happy to be speaking with you on this because of my knowledge as an Enneagram coach, as well as the career switch that I made. So hope that answers that question.
Perhaps I can let Wei Sing choose a question that he would like to dabble on. in this?
Dabble on. We have an anonymous attendee as well. I'm not too sure if the same person. He is asking a question directly to a type 3. So I should be answering this question, right? How does a type 3 support a subordinate who is not performing but have been trying very hard to hit the target? Okay, I pick up a few keywords. This subordinate is trying his very best, but yet not performing up to the type 3 standard, meaning to say the targets as given. Uh, I went through this challenge many a times, honestly. That's why I feel for the person who write this. I'm not so sure he's writing from a position of a type 3 or a position of other types who have this type 3 boss who's demanding. To appeal to all the type 3, I think we have to be realistic. Our KPI that is set may not be the same KPI that individually set. So rather than to dictate what other people feel, I really feel that everybody has his own strength. It's how we actually work together as a team. I got an example when there are people who are nurturers in our practice. They are very good in client servicing, etc. But at the beginning, when we're talking about client acquisition, sharing with people the importance of financial planning in terms of financial education, they may not be that strong in terms of their communication. So I think the role of a leader, especially as a type 3, is you got to try, you got to coach, train up. But as you go deeper, you realize this person, play to that person's strength, work as a team. So rather than to squeeze in someone into that makes you angry about it, let them know the expectation, but find a better role for them so that, teamwork is about together each achieve more, right? So everybody have his role to play. So I guess it's more of a teamwork thing rather than expecting individual. But of course, if this person has an attitude issue, he has the capacity, but he just doesn't want, you got to be candid with him, off you go, right? So this is how I would think that I would be helping to support a subordinate. I do have this experience many times. So I think we've probably known that. I hope they answer to our anonymous attendee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me, because of time constraint, I'm just going to answer one more question. And after that, we'll follow up with the rest. And
Yeah, I want to answer Karen's question. Is it worth to be a leader? What motivates leaders to choose to be leaders? To me, back then, it wasn't an option. What prompted me to want to be a leader? As a type 5, why would I want to be a leader, right? I want to be behind the scene, not in the limelight. But what motivates me was that actually leadership is not an option. When we go back home, we have kids to take care of. It's also about leadership. So if you are not able to learn about leadership, I think for us as a financial consultant, the role is also about leading our clients to take care of their finances, to take better ownership of their finances and leading them to the right path in helping them in taking more responsibility towards that. So for me, as a role of a financial consultant, leadership is actually not an option. I can siam that for 1 year, but imagine when that happens, right? If I don't want to be a leader, it means that I'll become an order taker. So I don't think I want to be in a situation whereby my client just tell me that, oh, just help me invest this amount, or just help me get some insurances, instead of coming to us, asking us for advice and consulting us on whether they should be getting their second property, whether is it better for them to be getting their second property or to be holding it for another 5 years. So to me, it's quite obvious. And the price, PRICE, versus the price, that's a very good pun that Wei Xing said. It's definitely worth it. Because today, when I look at my team grow, when I look at them stepping up, when I look at them succeeding, that pride and joy and the fulfillment is something that money cannot buy. But it's almost like when you have a baby and from day one that they start to crawl, they start to learn how to eat. And then finally today, they are able to make their own income. They are able to bring the bread home. I think that fulfillment is every parent that you feel very proud to be in. So leadership to me, it's not an option, and leadership is not that difficult after all. The question that I ask myself is, am I a leader that can lead myself? So leadership is different from manager. Manager is more like you direct them, you tell them what to do, but leadership is all about role modeling. So the best person or the first person to benefit from leadership is really the leader herself, because it's a lot of self-work, it's a lot of inspiring others through the work and the growth that we are exhibiting. So I hope that answers Karen's question as well.
Very good.
Can I just add on to what Xiaoqing mentioned? It resonated me a lot. Karen's already saying thanks already, so maybe I shouldn't need to add in anything. I really believe that the greatest beneficial is that we can lead ourselves well, that we can be the person, leader is really about not leading other first. You're going to lead ourselves well first. You're going to be candid to ourselves first. And when we lead ourselves well, we have the inner joy. And if Karen would ask me what motivates a leader to choose to be a leader, I agree with what Xiaoqing mentioned. It's not a choice, but it's because I'm grateful for the blessing that was showered to me by my leaders, by my teachers. That's why I want to reciprocate this back. It's because that I receive a lot, especially in areas of financial planning. I realized that a lot of public are not be able to view authentic financial planning. But here I am having the blessing to have received proper guidance in how do I manage my finances. I literally see, consumers, PMEs losing a lot of money. Recently, there is an article on CPF investment. He mentioned that 1 out of 2 are better off not investing in their CPF. I'm a believer in investing. 78% of our investors are making more than our CPF investment, 2.5%. So I guess there is about this gratitude that I want to share, that when we are being blessed with a lot of things, we wanted to pass it down. So that was really some of the underlying motivation to a lot of leaders within Unicorn. Because we are being blessed, we wanted to pass this blessing down. And in Chinese, they say 施比受更有福 嘛. Correct. So I realized that the joy comes in by giving. The joy doesn't come in when we receive. And that's what I see about the beauty of being a leader. And I cannot agree more with Xiaoqing. Like it or not, we are leaders in one way or another. Be it if we are parents, be it we are a child or a citizen to the country. We are all here to lead ourselves well. So that's what I wanted to share to Karen. So you add in some pointers for her to think about it.
I like the way you say it. It's like both of you have like model answers. So nice. I can't decide who has a better answer.
No, really, that's not a role model answer, really.
It's a
I always
sincere
share
answer,
with
and I can
him.
see from you that
Yeah, it's about the heartfelt feelings that I really feel. A lot of people thought that leaders are glamorized. That's why I wrote about there's a price. There's also a price. Nothing sounds free, but it's about the intention. I have friends who always want to be a leader because of their own glory and fame. And honestly, I fall into that trap. In the past, I always thought that the title of being a leader was something that
really.
is important. But when you have the intention, people around you feels that they know that you wanted to lead them because of your own agenda. So
Mm,
that was I really feel about this word leadership, servanthood leadership. Put it this way.
servant leadership. Keyword. Talking about that, I'm so sorry we don't have time to answer all the questions, but don't worry, don't be disappointed because even if your questions are not answered, we will follow up with you afterwards. So, and I see Wee Sing and Xiao Qing both has been talking about this extensively about how it is important to actually give back, right? To sort of like this is what you receive from your leaders and your mentors, and you would like to give it back. And therefore, let me bring the topic back to recruitment. One of the reasons why we're doing R Factor is because over here, Unicorn is also recruiting. So for friends who are looking to make perhaps some adjustment to your career, or perhaps to your pocket, or you after getting inspired by starting talking about sustainability in your career, longevity, right? Perhaps you want to consider that. Or you have friends who are thinking of doing that, you can recommend that to us. Or perhaps after this webinar, you realize, hey, these people are really sincere and you see the benefits of joining Unicorn. So come, let's explore. We have a session, which is next week on Saturday. It's the R consultation. So for all the questions that were not answered today, perhaps you have more questions about Anagram, perhaps you have more questions about Unicorn, perhaps more questions about career. It doesn't have to be just Unicorn, right? Perhaps just a broad perspective as well, more options, to understand better. Perhaps you want to be an entry professional now, or you want to understand more about what's the role of being a financial planner and things like that. Or you want to just perhaps hear from the people who are practitioners, learn from the veterans in the industry, and discover whether Unicorn's the place suitable for you. Any of these reasons, come and join us next week, Saturday, which is our R consultation. Don't worry, I know it's still H2 right now. We revert back to phase. We're going to do this over Zoom. So perhaps you can just scan over here at the QR code, or you can express interest to the person who invited you today. Of course, scanning the QR code is the fastest way. Our consultation next week on the 24th of July, Saturday, 10 a.m. over Zoom. Oh, looking at these three pictures of you this 10 time. Wow, 好帅. 离题. Okay. Meanwhile, not only that we have our consultation, I would like to share with you. There's also one thing I would love to highlight to you as well, because this session is not just for you to explore all these. You can also tell your friends who know that maybe this is something that is beneficial to your friend. After this session, you say, hey, I went to this webinar about Enneagram, about career. Perhaps I think it's something suitable for you. You can introduce your friend to join us for our consultation as well. Alternatively, you can also invite yourself back next month and your friends next month for our next session of R Factor. Like I mentioned, it's a series of webinars. We're going to do it every month. And next month is going to be on the 14th of August. So that will be after National Day. So we're going to continue with the topic of Enneagram. And then our topic is going to be, are you ready to have peace of success? I wonder what that means. So it's also same day at Saturday at 3 p.m. over Zoom as well. All you have to do is to scan the QR code, or you can express your interest after this to the friend who invited you today. And thank you for joining me and all your patience with us. I hope you really got some value today with all our sharings and something interesting, something that you don't mind learning more. You can join us for the next session. And I would love to express my thanks to our two speakers today. We have Wei and Xiao Ting. Thank you for all your sharing in your very, very personal experiences, your informative perspective on certain things over here, not just the obviously we think professional knowledge about Enneagram. You give a lot of examples about what you think about certain things. So I think that is very valuable. It makes us more like a real, because we don't just only give examples. We actually do this by ourselves, and you two are the people who really show me, you lead by your example. Okay, I talk too much. Would you like to say anything to our audience before we say bye-bye today? Suddenly, both of you so quiet.
Oh, you're telling us.
Easy answering all the Q&A and the chats.
Yeah. I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful for the great audience today. We hope you have not bored you with. Keep the feedback in. For the friends who have invited you, if you can connect with them, let us know your feedback, how we can actually improve this session so that we can cater more valuable content sharing. We can only share what we have. I can't share what we don't have. So yeah, enjoy ourselves. That's all I have. Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you, Wei. How about Xiaoqing?
Thank you, everyone. Have a great Saturday. And please stay safe. The cluster numbers are increasing, and please stay safe. And we hope to see you again next month, because next month we are going to have an interesting topic again. And this time around, we are going to be talking about what is a type that you probably see quite a majority of our Singaporeans in. So it's going to be a very relatable topic.
Thank you, Xiaoqing. Yeah, I actually quite look forward to next month's webinar. So stay tuned for it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I am Tammy Chu, and we are signing off. R Factor. Before we end, three of us, can we say our tagline together? Do you remember?
Please, let's do it.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Most choose to ignore the inevitable. We choose to face up to it. R Factor, are you ready? Bye.
Bye-bye.